Alright guys, thank you and welcome back. Sorry about the god-awful free music that I play. I'm going to try and start just using Monster Cat instead, I think, because that's painful. So I feel sorry for you guys even listening to that. Let's go into the second section of the show. First of all, guys, questions at x5_pig tag. Type them out in chat now or over the next few minutes. We're going to answer those at the end. We're going to go into the second part of the show now, which is talking about hotkeys. We talked about your boxing micro, your mouse accuracy, different kind of techniques you can use to work on those. Now we're going to talk about spellcasters, and this is something which is very important. So first of all, to start out, oh, you know what? Actually, I was going to give myself a bunch of Roach Fester. I'll show you guys what I'm doing. We're actually going to give myself a bunch of sentries. So many sentries, so I can talk about the most forgotten mechanic in StarCraft. So what we're going to be talking about is how to cast spells quickly. Now there's a thing called rapid fire. If you're interested in finding out about that, just type into YouTube or Google Jack Attack rapid fire hotkey trick or rapid fire StarCraft. You'll find all about it. That's basically a method which people use sometimes. I don't want to talk about that today. I want to talk about our more fundamental way of casting spells and the much more regular way we cast spells, even at high levels. And that is normally you go spell click. So in this case, F click, F click, F click. Now force fields might not be the most common spell these days, but this is a really good example because often you need to drag a wall. And you'll see people do it like this, F click, F click, F click, all right? Seems all right, seems okay. However, people often forget that even without using rapid fire, there is a really cool mechanic, and it is you don't need to press F multiple times. If you hold down a spell hotkey, after about, I don't know, 1/3 of a second, not very long at all, it will toggle. So, notice before I was going F click, F click, F click, what you can do is you can just go F, click, 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 click. And you can do this with any spell. Absolutely any spell. Right now, F, click, 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 click. Now, if the moment I press F before it toggles, I try to do this, let's see how that works. So, oh, it still worked actually. I was practicing this yesterday. Okay, there we go. Yeah, so here we go. I'll show you one more time. Notice there's a gap because when I first pressed it, it hadn't toggled. So then the time it took me to click, 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 it was only here that it had actually toggled in and started accepting the fact that, oh, you want to be casting multiple spells. This is a really cool mechanic. It's something that was brought in the very beginning of StarCraft 2, I'm pretty sure, and almost no one uses it. Even myself, I find forgetting that it exists and just going click, F click, F click, F click. But this makes things a lot easier, I think, for players who aren't quite as good at spamming buttons on their keyboard. It's a really useful mechanic in certain scenarios. So definitely something players need to be aware of, and I really do feel like so many people have no idea what the hell that does. I'm sure there's people in chat who do know exactly how that works, but there's a lot of people who just I've talked to and they're like, I didn't even know that was a thing. So we're going to try and use that as well as our normal F-click method, and we're just going to talk about landing some spells really quickly. Come at me, bro. So obviously, normally, you always want to think about the cast range on your spells. If I go force field, force field, force field, oh, I was casting it out of range. So by the time my sentries moved up and cast the force fields, it was too far away. So what you always want to be very aware of with every spellcaster you're using is where the spell range is. So it's with these guys, it's probably like there. But notice only one of them was in range there. So you always want to make sure you're casting those spells in range of the spellcaster, or it's not going to go the way you imagined. Man, sentries are imba. Where's the stimpaks at, hey? So that's the first thing to keep in mind. Let's reset this scenario. Let's go back. And I'm going to get rid of... So he can have combat shields as well, and he can have just a whole bunch of Marine Marauder. And we're just going to do Roach Infestor, because this is a composition that I'm used to using. Okay, we don't need that many infestors. That's a bit excessive. Ooh, upgrades. There we go. So we give ourselves roach speed. Alright, so what we're going to be talking about now is the idea of keeping your spell... We talked about keeping them in range, but now we're going to talk about just controlling 2 army groups. So you always want your spellcasters on a different army group. Now, a lot of players will say, look, I'm not used to doing that. I'm just going to put the infestors. It's fine. It'll always select the infestors. I can go fungal. That's cool. The problem is, when the fight starts, this is what's going to happen. Yeah, fungal, awesome. Attack move, attack move. Uh-oh, my infestors are having some fun trying to headbutt. I'm actually lucky these ones are trapped behind the roaches, but it means that every single fight, your infestors will always just headbutt to the front and derp themselves to death. Spellcasters are so expensive, you need them to regenerate. You need them to gain more value. So you always want to get these spellcasters on a different hotkey, and you want to micro them separately. Now, notice how I'm going 1 click, 2 click, 1 click, 2 click, 1 click, 2 click. This is something beginner players struggle with a lot. Now, I think it's really important to learn, because when you actually fight, it's very important to like maybe box and spread out your units, A-move them, and then very quickly with your infestors just behind the front line, move them up to inside spell range and then spam their spells. So you need to be very quick at swapping between your 2 hotkeys. So just getting used to having 2 army groups moving around rather than 1, this actually helps improve our ability to use both hotkeys in tandem. 1 click, 2 click, 1 click, 2 click. 1 click, 2 click. This is so important. However, if you struggle with it, you don't play that many hours a week, and you're like, look, I just can't get the hang of it, just do this. Just right-click your spellcasters on one of your main army group units, and then once the fighting starts, you can just start casting spells with them. And that's okay, that's not the end of the world. However, preferably we'll do it this way. Now keep in mind, what we're going to be watching for in this fight is me keeping my infestors right up in the battle, just behind the roaches, inside that spell range. Already, I look at these Marines and Marauders and I think my infestors need to be like here. They need to be like here. They need to be nice and close so they can land the fungal growths on this army. So it's always about envisioning where the edge of your spellcaster's range lies. You've got to imagine where the edge of that is, and you want them to be up close. Too many players aren't comfortable doing that, and I always see them go blinding cloud, blinding cloud, blinding cloud, and the Vipers like just like flying through the air. And then like the battle's half over and blinding clouds go down and the fight's already moved away from where they cast those spells. So this is the number one thing beginners need to focus on, but even experienced players sometimes struggle with it. So let's go. And infestors just behind, and then we move them back. We keep them just behind. Cast spells, and we're keeping them just here. Making sure they don't go too far forward. Cast spells. So notice we just kind of move them back and forth just behind the front line. So whenever you've got spellcasters, notice we don't micro too much our units. We're not focusing on our army much. Pro gamers aren't these magic gods that can just do 400 things at once. So we just A-move the roaches. That's all we do with the roaches because our fungal takes priority. So we're just choosing the most important action to focus on. And that's what allows us to do this micro effectively. Notice we're not spreading those roaches out. If we're a god of StarCraft, we would do that. But we're not a god of StarCraft. The average guy is not a god. He's just like a pretty chill dude who's playing some video games. And he's not going to be able to, oh, I'm going to create the perfect banana grin moon of death. We're going to do this. Perfect banana grin. Okay, we got this. Okay. You don't have time to do this in a game. You can't do everything. So it's always about prioritizing. So we just want to go in and let's do it. So just A-move the roaches, infestors just behind. Keep them just behind, still in range. And every single unit you use, it's always this same technique. High Templar, whatever. So you're always focusing on keeping the unit in range, number one, but just on the edge of safety as well. Let's take a look at our notes and see what are we talking about next. So I think that's the main end. There was a few other things I was thinking about talking about today to do with blink micro, mortal barriers, Lingbane versus Lingbane, and then I was looking at it and I was like, actually that's its own episode. I have so many more micro episodes where I'm going to sit and go through all these different techniques. There's too many to cover in one episode. We're already hitting 8 a.m., which means we've been going for like 50 minutes or so. So let's jump into question time and finish it up there. I do want to say a massive thanks to Eon Blue for helping us out in the chat, in game. And hang around. Don't go anywhere, guys. Even though the show's about to end, we're going to be giving away an Abatha code. And not only that, we're going to be hopping into a chat channel. So anyone who wants to practice micro right now, I want you to hop into chat channel PiG, or actually go search for PiG group or something like that. I think I created a group on the North American server. If you don't have a good connection to NA, I'm sorry. We're just going to start off there. If I have enough people taking part in future, I'll do it on EU and NA simultaneously. But hop into the PiGs group. So just search for PiGs group in game, and you can hop in there, North America. And I'm going to create a bunch of arcade games for you guys to just hop in and practice some micro with each other. For now, let's answer a few questions. All right, so a question from Rondon. He says, do High Templar have the most range for caster units? No. Every single spellcaster has a different range for every different spell. Fungal Growth is definitely further than High Templar, Storm, and Feedback, I think, but only just slightly. I have no idea what the exact ranges are on them, but if you search up on Wikipedia, so you can go Wikipedia Infestor, Wikipedia Ghost, Wikipedia High Templar, you will find the exact range of most of their spells listed on there. Rondon says, Pig, does Pig Jr. play a lot of StarCraft 2? I played him last night. Ah, that's my brother. He made Diamond. My brother, that's my little brother, because like he was like a little kid when my older brother bought him a StarCraft account. He was like 10 or something, so he just named it Pig Jr. And now he's like 15. Oh, he's turning 15 in like a month or two, and he has to live with that name. I'm like, ha ha ha, no free name change for you. That's cool. That's really cool. Yeah, he does play. He plays a fair amount. He's just been getting into it in the last few months, Rondon. That's really cool. I'm like afraid. I'm half like study in school. Don't waste all your time playing StarCraft. But on the other hand, I think it's pretty awesome that he's got to Diamond really fast. I think he's a really cheesy Terran though. From the little bit of play that I've seen. Foverlord says, if you stim without combat shields, Banes will one-shot Marines instead of two-shot. Yeah, that's actually a very good point. And that's something I was thinking of. I was like, oh, I didn't give combat shields. And I was like, damn it. But then I was like, oh, I already have so many Marines in that scenario. Because, yeah, a Marine has 45 hit points. You stim, it takes 10 hit points off. And a Baneling with no upgrades does 35 damage. So a very good point from Foverlord there. Cameron Kinnear says, patrol splitting is easier for low-ranked players, especially when they have to focus on macro. Maybe. You need to rebind patrol and so on. You know, that's something I definitely want to explore a little bit more. I know some people really like patrol splitting. It can be really bad in some scenarios, though. Like, it only works if done the right way. So it's one of those things which can be quite hit or miss if the player doesn't execute it correctly. There's a bunch of videos on YouTube on patrol splitting. It's something I haven't tried in such a long time, though. I'm not really confident having a conversation about it right now, guys. So I need to do a little bit more research into that again, because I haven't tried that since Wings, to actually see how it works these days, especially with my current understanding. Too Much Beer says, Pig, how do you use Snipe with the Ghost? In the middle of 10,000 Lings and Ultras, rapid fire doesn't work for me. Okay, well, I personally don't like Ghosts. I think they're very pedantic. I think even high-level players often try to avoid them because they are very hard to get working. If your opponent has a lot of Lings and Banes, you're never going to... Like, the only way your Ghosts can be effective is by pulling them behind your Marauders. You've got to have enough Marauders in front and hopefully having enough splash damage. If they've got a lot of Lings and Banes, you're going to need Widow Mines or Siege Tanks or something like that. And then you just need to keep pulling them back and then casting the spells from behind your army. If they're fighting just Ultras, it's very easy to land snipes. If you're fighting a massive Ling Bane, your Ghosts can't really do much. They need to like have other units in front. They need to pull behind the other units and then spread out. And that's all they can hope to do. So it's super advanced micro. There's no easy trick to it. Dirac says, I heard you should usually have only one caster when you're just learning to micro. What do you think are the most important spellcasters to learn for each race? Beautiful question from Dirac. Only one spellcaster. Never use more than two spellcasters when you're a beginner. You're not going to use them both. I know a lot of pro players who don't want to use more than one spellcaster because it just overcomplicates the situation. It's so fast paced already, so it gets very awkward. Obviously, Protoss is a special case where you're always going to have a mothership core as well. I personally like to get the mothership core always on a separate hotkey and leave it as more of a defensive unit. So if I'm attacking, I've only got the High Templar. I might have a sentry in my main army for Guardian Shield or something like that, but I'm not going to have High Templar and Disruptors on the same hotkey where I'm trying to like shoot out the Disruptor balls and then tab over and use Storm. If you do start using multiple spellcasters, you want to have them on separate hotkeys. To answer the second part of that question, what's the most important spellcaster for each race? I mean, Terran, it's kind of like Ghosts, I guess, but you don't really need... Ghosts are amazing against Protoss, so Ghosts are probably the most important, and they can be very good against Ultralisks when used correctly. For Protoss, it's got to be High Templar. I mean, what other spellcaster does Protoss have? Obviously, Sentries are very useful in certain situations, but I still think the High Templar is such a core unit in so many situations. And the Disruptor kind of is a spellcaster as well. I kind of think of it as a spellcaster in the way it works. For Zerg, what's the most important spellcaster? For most players, I would say the Viper. I think up to a pretty damn good level, Vipers are just so damn useful. Abduct on Disruptors, Abduct on any big units, using Blinding Clouds, Parasitic Bombs. I think the Viper is the most diverse Zerg spellcaster, and it's one of the most useful units in the game. Alright guys, so we've answered a few questions here. I think we'll finish up the show there. So if you do want to hop in and do some micro practice, hop into the PiG group. But otherwise, I think we answered quite a few things today, and I think today's session was pretty good. If you guys have any questions, anything I missed, any criticisms, post them in the Team Liquid thread, post them in the comments section below. Don't forget to like and subscribe and all that good stuff. Thanks for hanging out, guys. Don't forget to hug a cactus, lick a walrus, and of course, punch a watermelon to the moon. Goodbye and good night. That was weird. It's always weird, though. That's the whole point.